unfortunately, 6 people lost their lives. But I assure you, it could have been much worse. But no one wants to ask that question. Why wasn't it much worse? The reason they don't ask that question is because they know the answer, and it has nothing to do with gun laws. The reason it wasn't much worse was because of the police officer's efficient response and the lockdown system that the school had in place, so that when the shooter shot his way into the school, he couldn't find anyone to shoot. You can see him in the video wandering around looking for people, seeing little to no one. This gave the police precious time to get into the school and confront the shooter before he could kill anyone else. And that is what we call hardening our schools, i.e. making our schools an unattractive target to mass shooters because they're too hard to attack.
What's going on, everyone? Sauce Screen here. Today we're reacting to a video with Colion Noir, and he's gonna go into. I'm gonna go into some snippets about some of the arguments that he put out there, and I agree a lot with what he says. He's pro to a gun expert, and I like to follow his advice on when it comes to gun education. A lot of people are popular gun control people are uneducated about guns to the point where they'll make recommendations that's not actually practical in reality. For instance, he made the argument that we should harden our schools, we should make them more harder targets. There's been new stories coming out with the transgender person's manifesto that they had other targets in place, but they didn't go for those targets because they were harder to get to. Bruh. And my main problem with gun control laws is that it seems like that's the only solution that seems to be acceptable by mainstream liberal media, Hollywood actors, and all these people who come at it from an emotional reactionary perspective. But hey, I digress. Let's look at this clip that Colion Noir will drop some truth bombs. Here we go.
This is the case when shootings like this happen. There's a bunch of talk about passing gun laws so that this doesn't happen again. But the media figures and the celebrities and even regular people who say this never stop to ask, what gun control law would have stopped this? Background checks? All the guns that the shooter had were purchased legally. That meant the shooter had a background check to buy all of these guns, which also means there was nothing in the shooter's background that prevented them from buying these guns. What about raising the age to purchase a gun? The shooter was 28 years old. Are we gonna raise the age now to 30 years old? And what about a ban on so-called high-capacity magazines? The shooter had 3 guns on them: a pistol caliber carbine, an AR-15, and a handgun. Even if each magazine was limited to 10 rounds, the shooter would still have 30 rounds immediately at their disposal. That's assuming they didn't carry extra magazines, and in this case, they did. So what are we gonna do? Limit the number of rounds in a magazine to 5 rounds, and then when there's another shooting, limit them to 3 rounds? Limiting magazine capacity becomes a sliding scale with no end, other than to ban all ammo and all guns.
And that's the core argument that I have against gun control, because at the end of the day, gun controls, it's in the name. The only point of gun control is to control gun access, right? Access to everybody, right? But only a certain amount of people will follow that, right? Because what's the point of a law if it cannot be enforced? Biggest target for mass shootings, I think it's like 87%. There's a stat out there. It's like 80% chance that a place that's designated as a gun-free zone is the biggest target for mass shooters. Your policy is either helping the situation or it's exacerbating the situation. And then you put these gun-free zones. Then when the shooters still kill all these people in these gun-free zones, you use that as a pretext to push for more gun control laws, because your gun control laws don't do anything in the first place. Bruh. But y'all still keep pushing this.
It doesn't make sense.
For 50 years, we've been pushing for gun control. That I bet you if that place had a police officer, not a police officer, a public safety officer greeting the person as they come in, that would have gave even more time. Maybe even less people would have get hurt. But instead of that as a viable solution, an easier solution, in my opinion, to implement, no, we rather waste our time trying to create these arbitrary laws as if it's going to do anything. Like people who have ill intent towards other people will abide by these laws. I swear we live in clown world. I swear people think, oh, if I feel strongly enough about it, it can happen. No, the reality is bad people will do bad things. And if you don't equip good people with the capacity to properly defend themselves against bad people, you're only emboldening criminals. That's my take on this. Bruh. But I digress. He got another one, and this is an interesting stat that not many people know about it, that mass shootings are heavily publicized, right? They only represent a small minority of instances in our country compared to the amount of gun deaths. I think only 3% of gun deaths are related to mass shootings. But hey, I digress. Let's let Colion Noir give the details on this.
There are millions of magazines already in this country, and school shootings aren't the only types of shootings in this country. As a matter of fact, school shootings represent a fraction of shootings in this country. They just get the most press. So it's safe to say criminals aren't going to follow the magazine capacity limitation. So the criminals will have 30 plus rounds in their gun, while us law-abiding citizens are limited to 10, 5, or even 3, or whatever arbitrary number they come up with. You really want us to live in a world where the only people that have unlimited bullets in their gun are criminals, and we're relegated to 10 or 5 or 3 rounds?
What he said there's absolutely facts. That you highly publicize this thing because you want to paint a narrative, right? And when like I said before, only about 4% of gun deaths are related to mass shootings. Bruh. So, but you're using this to justify your gun control laws. Oh, we're gonna make it a gun-free zone. Make it viable targets for these people, for these kids, for these deranged people, right? What house would a criminal be more likely to attack? A house with a sign saying we're healthy gun owners over here, or a sign that says this is a gun-free house. Common sense, everyone knows he's gonna go for the house with no guns. A lot of these gun control zealots want to make stats saying that, the likelihood of owning a gun ownership increases the likelihood of you dying by the hands of a gun. Bruh. Because they believe that a criminal can get access to the gun, and then resisting the criminal causes an escalation in force. It doesn't. If you're helpless, you're at the whim of the criminal, and the criminal is twice as likely to do harm to you if you're unarmed than if you're armed. Most of the time, and this is why I'm saying 2 million cases of self-defense use, all the person had to do is brandish the gun and the criminal will run away. Usually in home invasion situation. Gun control zealots like to just ignore that stat. They're like, no. That doesn't apply. We're only going to count the gun deaths, where 50% of them are due to suicide and 45% of them are due to homicide. So people killing themselves, like I stated in the last video, and people who commit crimes with it. White people have the largest proponent of gun ownership, but they have less gun deaths compared to the black community, because the black community is overrepresented in homicide. That's a bruh moment, guys. Bruh. Not looking too good. We're the group with the least amount of ownership, but we have higher gun deaths compared to white communities who on statistically have higher usage, higher percentages of gun ownership. Rural areas have more gun ownership than urban areas, but there's higher murder rates in urban areas compared to rural areas. But we're sitting here saying guns are the problem. It all points down to one thing, and that's what I'm saying. These gun control advocates only focusing on one thing. We don't like the fact that you're killing people with guns. If you kill people with cars, we don't care. If you jump off buildings, we don't care. But we don't like the fact that you have guns. Why? I digress.
And now let's talk about banning so-called assault weapons. Usually when people hear assault weapon, they think automatic machine gun, when in reality, they're talking about an AR-15, which is a semi-automatic rifle, because machine guns are already essentially banned in this country. If the logic is mass shooters use AR-15, so let's ban AR-15s, why isn't that the same logic we use for handguns? Because it's not a secret. Handguns are the most common weapon type used in mass shootings in the United States, with a total of 161 different handguns being used in 111 incidents between 1982 and March 2023. The most deadly school shooting in U.S. history was at Virginia Tech University, where the shooter killed 32 people and injured 17.
Shocking stat, right? Most mass shootings are done by handguns. Do you think the mainstream media will report that?
Nope.
No. Because they want to use, which one looks more deadlier? If we can get them to ban this, then later on we can justify why we need to ban the handguns, because then it will come out, stats say handguns are actually more responsible for mass shootings than AR-15s. Bruh. You see the play on words? And this is why I'm saying that, and this is why I'm doing, by the end of the week, I'm going to have this video about Ben Shapiro explaining the corruption of the mainstream media, and that journalism in its origin was always something that political advocates always got into. Right? Civilian journalism. Bruh. And you see it. They pick and choose what stories they want to amplify out there in the ether, right? They control your perception, they control what direction you're looking at, and they can paint a narrative about these things and get the people to believe a certain narrative, even if it's untrue, even if it's unfounded, even if they have no evidence to purport the information that they're pushing out there. No, it's all about conditioning you, or like shepherds leading you down a particular path. Imagine that. I said this stat already, but I didn't say this stat, but I said this already. Like, The biggest problem, I think, is that there's no longer any social cohesion in our communities anymore, in our country anymore. People don't look at each other as Americans anymore. They look at you as an other. And in these little tribal warfare we have, and we're dividing people based on race, class, whether you're atheist or not, having all this divide is causing these wars, causing people to be distrustful of people. And that's where gun control at its root is really about. Not trusting your fellow citizen. I'm tired of seeing all this bickering over something like, you're not doing my solution. No, we should do what works. And gun control don't work. Like, no, the easiest solution, the more practical solution, the quickest solution is, hey, let's create funding for to beef up security in our schools so that our kids are protected from assailants that will think twice before trying to do anything like this again. But no, we don't get that.
Nope.
Never let a good crisis go to waste, right? That is the democratic model, but I digress. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching to the end of the video. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.